Welcome to the Miracle You, guiding you on the journey towards finding passion and purpose and how to discover, create, and live a life by your design. Whether your success has been plentiful or your missed opportunities have been overwhelming, we can help you become a more empowered, masterful person and show you how to share your gift with the world. It's time to inspire change from within with the host of the Miracle You, Vince Kramer.
Hello, imagination. I'm Vince Kramer, your host, and welcome to the Miracle You, where you learn about the magic of living your life by finding the example in real life. I feel that one of the most devastating things that can happen to us in our lives are living from the things that we're supposed to do or what we're not supposed to do. The rules around supposed to or not supposed to all come from society. They all come from the outside. And there's a calling, a yearning inside of us to be more of who we are, to step fully into the life that we deserve. But we tend to listen to the voices that tell us what we shouldn't do. And I want you to look at life from a new place. You wouldn't have that yearning, you wouldn't have that calling inside of you if you weren't meant to follow it. There are no mistakes or coincidences in the universe, and those yearnings and callings are asking you to step more into who you are, to experience and enjoy life your way. Because there is no other way in your life than your way. I'm with Victoria Wolf today. Victoria is a graphic designer, chef, artist, and nomad. Along with her husband, Rich, she travels the country living, working, cooking, and exploring full-time in their fifth wheel RV. After years of living a conventional life, lacking in adventure and satisfaction, she now unapologetically lives a life that feeds her soul. An entrepreneur for over 30 years, Victoria learned to bob and weave to keep her successful business, as well as bring that much needed flexibility to her nomadic life. She hopes her story will inspire others to embark on the journey towards creating a life that brings them joy. Victoria Wolf, are you ready to share the miracle of you with the imagination?
Oh, yes, I am. Very, very ready.
I
Thank
am
you for
so
having me.
excited. Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. As I was sharing before we started recording, that the life that you live is so amazing and so important as an example for others. Could you share a little bit about that life, what you and Rich are doing right now?
Well, we are nomads. We do not have a typical home. We have no what we in the lifestyle here. It's called a sticks and bricks. So we are living, working, cooking, exploring full time in an RV, a very large RV, and we are not roughing it by any means. We have a huge kitchen, dishwasher, washer and dryer. We have our little home on wheels. So we packed up and left Denver in May, and we've been doing this about 6 months now. Currently, we're in South Carolina, just outside of Hilton Head. We are making our way south for the winter, which is probably one of the most wonderful parts about this lifestyle, because you can just we're chasing 70, but now with climate change, I say we're chasing 75 because 70 is a little hard to find. But I will say in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where we spent most of our summer, we were in the 70s. It was absolutely gorgeous. And we're loving this lifestyle.
What a beautiful place Upper Peninsula is, and like you said, you can hit that 70-degree mark on a pretty much a regular basis. So the interesting thing is that you had a very successful business as a graphic designer and a marketer. And through that, so many things happened to really take you on a journey of, I think, building a life with Rich that you both can do on the road and make a difference, but at the same time be who you want to be and enjoy it. And I think a lot of the things that it all got started in cooking. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is all about cooking. Rich and I met in 2013. We were both going through a divorce. I had been married for almost 25 years. That's kind of what connected us, was our love for cooking. And we got together and then we started cooking all these different things. And there's a lot more that, we found that had in common. He was, he's my soulmate. He's the person that I probably, I wish I would have found years ago. I got it right the second time, which is very good. And one of the things about me is I am gluten and dairy free. I have been for almost 15 years. And so he took it on as a challenge when we met. It's like he wanted to learn how to make things gluten and dairy free. And one thing led to another. And we both love pizza, and the gluten-free offerings for pizza were really bad. And he said, oh, let's make our own. And I was reluctant at first, and then we did. And next thing you know, we have a gluten-free bakery, and we're selling products in 8 states, and we pretty much own the Denver restaurant scene with all our products. And at the same time, I was still doing the design and marketing company, and he was doing food, working for Cisco for a while. So we had a lot going on. And then in 2020, not because of COVID, we lost our gluten-free business. And so we were devastated, and didn't really know what to do, because we're kind of motivated people who want to have some sort of goal and move forward, and we're always moving. And that's when we made the decision to do the RV lifestyle, because we weren't ready to stop. We weren't ready to say, hey, we're in our early 50s, let's just chill and not do anything. That's not who we are. So we pivoted. It was a big pivot. We spent 2 years, almost 2 years getting ready. We rebuilt, because I had let the marketing and design company kind of go down a little bit while we were doing the other business. He joined the company, and we rebuilt it in the last 2 years, and allowed ourselves to go out on the road. And going out on the road was so much more than just a different view from our windows. It was about, okay, we can really design our life right now. We have nothing holding us back, nobody telling us what to do. There's no suburban lifestyle we're supposed to live, go here, go there, have these friends, those friends, whatever we thought we were supposed to be living our whole life. Not that it was all bad, but it was a way to, it was a hard reset, and it was great. And now we just, I guess our attitude is, we do what we want to do, and we really don't care if anybody agrees or gives us, crap about whatever. We just do us. And that was probably the most freeing part of that decision.
If we all could just do us, the world would be so different, wouldn't it?
It would, and it's so difficult to do. This has been, I know for me, my lifelong journey to figure out who I am, what I want, how I want to live my life, because I feel like I've lived so much of my life for other people. And I think that, as a woman, when I grew up, we were taught to do that in many ways. So I've kind of been recovering from that, but it's scary to figure out what you want and how to live your life without approval. Because we always go to friends and family and say, well, what do you think of this idea? And what do you think, because we think as humans, we need that. But when we let go of that, and when we trust ourselves to just do what we want to do, what makes us feel good and brings us joy, then we're free. But until then, I don't think you become free. Now, it's not to say I don't second guess. I am, a huge second guesser and over analyzer. And it's like, because of that, I probably really need nobody else's opinion. I've got, 17 opinions going on in my head. So, but it is very freeing. And, people are always going to have their opinions and maybe not agree, but we don't care anymore.
Well, and it's important for you to do what feels good for you, and what brings you together and lights you up. Like you said, it's obviously that you're lit up. I mean, you're smiling, you're happy, your energy is just incredible. Let me ask you this, and I know it's really close to the time that it's happened, but do you think losing your business was really a door to your future in your life?
Yeah, at the time it was devastating, obviously. I don't take failure well. I don't think any of us do. And it was our baby. I mean, and we were doing so well with it. It was even more, it was just a bad situation we got into. We couldn't move forward. But looking back, as with many things in life, I always try to find the positive, even in the bad things. And we were killing ourselves. We were working 80+ hours a week. We weren't happy. I mean, we had this dream, but getting to that dream was so painful. And so losing it probably was a very good thing. It allowed us to make this decision and to completely change our lives and live our lives the way we want. And we wouldn't have probably been able to do it if we didn't lose the business. So in retrospect, as painful as it was probably one of the best things that could have happened to us, because just because you're on a path that you feel passionate about is not enough. You have to, I feel like you have to totally own it in every cell of your body. And I can't say, as passionate as we were about the company, that my entire body was really happy about it. It was hard. It was some of the hardest work I know I've ever done in my life. But when you're driven, and sometimes you're driven a little too much, and you don't see the forest through the trees, and you don't see what's actually best for you.
Isn't that so true? And then the interesting thing is you still have Wolf Design and Marketing, and you and Rich found a way to bring other loves into working together and helping self-publishing authors bring their book to the world and bring it to a world in ways that it's noticed. And I know how important that is, because we're launching a book in less than 2 weeks now. Yes, and that journey, having someone who cares, someone who is bringing their loves and their gifts and talents to the world to help you on that journey is amazing. Can you share some of the experiences of you bringing that together between the two of you? And then if you could share maybe some examples of people you've worked with.
Oh, yes. It's for me, I'm in my 31st year of being graphic designer. And in 2016, I had a woman that I work with. She's an editor and a writing coach. And she came to me and said, "Hey, you want to do a book cover?" And I'm like, "Well, I've never done a book cover. I'll do a book cover." Oh my God, I was hooked from that point on. And now, what is that, 7 years later, that's all I do. I have a few other old clients. All I do are books, and I absolutely love books. And then when Rich came into the business, he came in as a self-publishing consultant. And so he helps the author with all the nuts and bolts and the behind the scenes, getting on Amazon, setting accounts, doing marketing, things like that. And then I do all the creative. And so one of the most amazing things about working with authors is all the joy. Yeah, there's a lot of fear and terror in there too, especially because most of them are first-time authors. But to just be part of something so wonderful and so meaningful to another human being and be able to help them, it's like birthing their ideas out to the world. So I guess we're like book doulas or something. I don't know. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And we've worked with authors in so many different genres, from business to memoir to fiction, all different types of fiction. I've done a textbook. Just so many, and I especially love working with the authors that have series. I have a couple authors that have fiction series, and it's so fun to watch that explode into from one book to 5 or 6 or 7 books. But it's been wonderful, and to be able to redirect a business that I've had for 30 years into something that I really, really love. I always liked graphic design, but really in the middle, in the 2013 to 16, something like that, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was so done with it. And then the books come along, and they life has been breathed into my design, and I have a new passion, and I'm super excited about it. And I finally won design awards after 20 something years of being a designer. So, it was all good. Definitely.
So amazing. And I think you should use that, book doulas.
Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So could you tell us about some of the people that you've worked with, some of the things that maybe some of the catching points or sticking points for authors, and how you and Rich have worked with them to move beyond those?
Yeah, and every author is different. And I think that's also what I love about this, is every project there's similarities, obviously, because they're books, but every author's circumstances, their story, everything is different. A lot of what we do is taking a first-time author that knows nothing about the book world, and taking them through the process. The cover is always an interesting part of the process, because most authors, they don't know what a cover is supposed to do. And they feel like that's, if their cover isn't perfect, then their book isn't going to be perfect. But the cover has its own things that it's supposed to do, and working through that is probably one of the most personal parts of it. But then the interior too, getting authors through editing. We have a ton of editors that we work with. That is probably the hardest part of the book process. And I've written a book, so I understand that it's painful, and it can really break you if you're not careful. But we're there, holding the author's hand, make sure everything's okay. And then we have a lot of authors that come to us that know exactly what they want, and we love working with them and comparing and contrasting different things when it comes to cover and interior, and getting their message and their voice out there in the best way. We had a financial book that we worked on earlier this year, which was so much fun. He was a go-get-it guy. He knew exactly what he wanted. But what was good is he also took our advice. There's a give and take in this process. It's the author's book. They ultimately get whatever they want. But to hire us and not take our advice, I mean, that has happened. It doesn't always end as well as it could, but it doesn't happen too often. But he really took our advice, and we created something pretty amazing for him. And he's just doing blockbusters with his book, and he's very, very happy. And his book, actually, all proceeds are going to charity, so it's helping more people than just the author. And most of our projects are like that, and it's tons and tons of fun.
That's so awesome. I know exactly what you mean when you say it's the author's baby. And sometimes it's hard to let somebody say, well, maybe you should put that coat on that baby, or maybe you should that. And it's like, but this is way I think it should be. But selling a book is so important, because you're getting your story out. Mm-hmm. And our stories are just so important. Even your blogs, the blogging that you do, sharing your stories of traveling and the experience that you have, those stories help so many people. What are your thoughts on the importance of getting stories out into the world?
What's interesting is I didn't realize how important stories were until I obviously got into the book business. And when I made the decision to write my book, that was a big point for me, was, who cares about my story? I'm one person, it doesn't matter. But I've come to realize that you don't know who you're going to connect with your story. And I thought back, a lot of the things that I've gone through in my life, I've looked for books to help me. And every time I was in that book, I was looking for stories that I could relate to, that were maybe similar to whatever I was going through at the time. And then when I found one, there was a huge connection, and it helped me. And so that's what I told myself when I got ready to write my book. It's like, somewhere somebody's going to connect with me, and they're going to connect with me and maybe nobody else. Maybe I'm the only story that's going to make a difference in their life. And so I think that not putting your stories into the world actually cheats the world of your story, and of the ability for that story to be powerful and moving, and be an element of change in somebody's life. So if you don't think your story is important, I guess I'm here to say every story is important. It doesn't matter. You don't have to. We had an author just recently, love her book. It was about a little bit about genealogy, but she was uncovering these secrets that were in her family, that her father, her and her father worked together. And when we were talking initially about it, I was asking her, the story, kind of what's the, I don't always read all the books that I do, because I don't have time for that. So I'm like, okay, so tell me what happens at the end, because I wanted to know the story arc. And she's like, well, nobody was murdered, nobody died, so it's not going to be the New York Times bestseller because nobody died. If somebody had died, it would be a totally different book. And I just thought that was hilarious. But nobody has to die in your story. You don't have to have lived the hardest life out of everybody that It's not about that. It's about the intricacies of one story will connect with people. And I think that's important, whether it's through a book, a blog, whether it's through video. I mean, video is another way to tell a story. in a more modern way to tell a story. So I'd say get out there and tell stories.
For sure. One of the things that I have found in the work that we do is that we look at our lives and say that it's nothing special and nobody's going to get anything out of it. But it's very comforting to know you're not alone. And it's very comforting to find that people have made it through the same situation that you're experiencing right now. And in making it through, it gives you hope. And there's so much hope in so many of the stories that are out there to share. And the universe, quantum physics tells us that there are no mistakes or coincidences. So there's a reason that we live this life. And there's almost, not quite yet, but almost 8 billion people in this world. And of 8 billion people, there's got to be more than one that need to hear your story and to understand who you are so you can help them be more of who they are. So I think the work that you and Rich are doing is just spectacular. Could you tell us a little bit about your book?
My book is I made a decision. So I guess I was on my journey to live unapologetically back when I started my book, which is in the middle of 2020. One of the ways I coped with losing the business is I had a lot more free time. And I had this bin of painting supplies that I always wanted to start painting. Being a graphic designer and being a painter are two different things. And at least I thought they were. There's a lot of similarities. And so I said, okay, now I'm gonna start painting. I'm gonna teach myself how to paint. And so I started this process, and about a couple of months into it, I was talking to the editor who got me started in books. And I said, you know what, it's time to write a book. I have a book in me. I don't know what it's about. And we were going back and forth, and I was telling her about my process or my experience with my painting. And she's like, this is how we need to structure the book. Every book is a painting, and what you went through during the painting and what you learned, because every painting brought back all this stuff from my past, all the things that I hadn't dealt with in very dramatic ways. And so that is what the book is. Every painting is a story about my frustrations and most of them are frustrations. It does get better. It's kind of like frustrating, and then it gets back, there's a happy ending. But I go through all the stuff from my past. So it's kind of like a memoir wrapped around my painting journey. And I decided I wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. I was going to be as raw and honest as possible, because I know, like what I mentioned earlier, looking in books, trying to find stories that, resonated with me. Nobody was really in those stories was telling the truth. Nobody was speaking about what it's like to be in the trenches in the middle of a depressive episode, or, the thoughts that go in your head when you're beating yourself up. What do those look like? What do those sound like? And you think there is no way people have thoughts like I do. There's no way. It's just too bad. And I think everybody does. And so my book, it's a story of that. It's a story of my life. It's a story of me overcoming a whole bunch of things in my life. And I don't leave out any of the inner chatter. It's very much also a story about the two Victorias that fight all the time, and figuring out where they come from, why they're in my life, and how do I excise them. Well, one of them I wanted to keep, the other one I wanted to get rid of. So yeah, so it's basically an art memoir.
And like you said, sharing your story is healing for yourself too.
Oh, it was so healing. The book, between the art journey and the book, that it was the combination that was the most healing for me. I started to heal with painting, and then as I wrote about it, and all these things came up as I was writing that made what I went through during painting made more sense. And so I am a completely different person for going through that process than I would have been if I didn't. I'm very, very grateful for that painful but grateful process.
But the ability to heal then opens you up to so many other possibilities. What would you share? I know not everyone that's listening to this podcast is going to want to hop in an RV. If it's a 40-footer or a 12-footer, they're not going to want to hop in an RV and go travel and live in that small space. Although we have a large Montana, and it's not a small space at all. But what would you say to them about finding what they would be ignited with, or finding their joy in life, what would you share with them?
I think the biggest thing is just to be open and do a lot of, in internal exploration to find out what brings you joy. I realized right before this journey and in making this decision that I'm pretty much a nomad at heart. I don't like to stay in one place for long, but I've always stayed in one place. I mean, well, I grew up in Florida, but I did, and then I moved to Colorado, but it's like 29 years in Florida, 27 years in Colorado. That's kind of staying in one place. But, when it comes to houses, I always felt this need to, like, 5 years here, 5 years there. I never did that, but I wanted to do that. And I discovered I didn't know I had that love, that I just want to be somewhere new. I want to explore, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And Rich and I both have a feeling, and we're figuring this out now. We think it's between 3 and 4 weeks in one location, and then we feel like, okay, we're ready to move on, ready to see something new. So we're both pretty, I guess, nomadic. And so whatever that thing is, and it might be something that it's been, kind of knocking on your door for a while, but you always tell it to go away and you don't pay any attention to it. That could be your thing. I say just explore and listen. You tell you what you want all the time, and you just have to listen. I didn't listen for a very long time about a number of things, but I mean, you know what you want, but you just got to be open to it.
And I love the way that you shared it earlier, that so many people have their opinion on what will work or what makes sense or what you should do. And a lot of their opinions are based on their feelings or what they want. I'm sure there's a lot of people that didn't want you out traveling because they wanted you around them.
Yes, there is a few family members, yes.
And then there's the people that they could never imagine stepping out and doing something like you would do. So if you do it, now they have to look at where they're holding themselves back. So a lot of people say, well, it probably isn't a smart thing to do because they really don't want to look at themselves. So we open the door when we start living who we are. And we open the door for not just ourselves, but the people around us to at least question, am I living life my way? Or am I living life the way that society has told me or my parents have told me that I should live it? So I love the example that you and Rich are being through all of that.
And that is so true, because opinions are based on our own reality and our fears and whatever's coming up for us when we're making a comment on something, and that's okay. And one of these days, and this is why stories are so important, you're gonna resonate with a story that you hear rather than be repelled or scared by it. And so if there aren't enough stories out there, you may not find what you're looking for. And it's like the other day I posted a picture of an alligator. It's the first alligator I've seen in 27 years. It's here at the campground. And it wasn't too big, it was only 4 feet. And but the comments I got, it's like, oh wait, no way I can do that. I'm glad I'm here and not there. And that's a perfect example of they're seeing that experience that I have, and they're putting their own fears onto it, which is perfectly normal. I'm not criticizing it, but that's how we function. And hopefully I'll post a picture one day and they're like, oh, I love that, and maybe I should do that. And so you put it out there. You never know. I mean, every once in a while somebody will come to you and say, thank you, you've helped me. We've had a few of those. We do videos about RV life, and we did a bunch of videos of our decisions to buy the rig that we bought before we hit the road. And we've had a couple people that have watched those videos and come to us and say, thank you, you helped us decide, which rig to buy. And so sometimes you hear, but many times you never know who you've helped, but you have to have the belief that you just put the story out there and somebody will benefit. And that's kind of what we do.
Isn't that the truth? Believe it or not, we're getting close to our end of time. Is there one thing that you want to make sure that everyone takes away from our time together?
I think the greatest thing is, you hear it all the time. You only have one life. You don't live forever. You don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. But you know what? Take that seriously. You just go do what you want to do and live your own life. Don't live for anybody else. I think that's probably I could say that over and over and not say it enough. We've all done it for too long. Whatever place you are in life, now's the time to do you.
That's an awesome Awesome
I like
advice.
that. That's a good tagline. Now's the
Yes.
time to do you.
You've got a tagline and you've got your what do they call it? Your
Yeah, the
hooky.
book-to list.
You
Yeah.
got your hooky title. So
Yeah,
yeah,
this was a productive podcast. Thank you.
there you go. You've got it all. How can people get in touch with you, learn a little bit more about your traveling and about Wolf Design and Marketing?
Wolfdesignandmarketing.com would be where to find out about that. gfexplorers.com or at gfexplorers. We are on YouTube, Instagram. We have a website. And victoriawolfart.com is where you can find my art. I'm still painting, less frustrating painting, but I am still painting.
Awesome. I'll make sure all that information is available on Victoria's show page. Just go to themiracleu.com, look for Victoria's page. All that information will be available to you. Thanks for living your life your way.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been lots of fun.
On behalf of my wife and business partner, Mary, the entire team here at Imagine Miracles, we want to wish each and every one of you a miracle day.
You've completed this episode of The Miracle You, but we have plenty more to help you discover your own personal passion and purpose. Head over to themiracleu.com for free resources to assist you on your journey, as well as register for our free webinar, Discover Your Miracle Life, 3 Mind Awakening Steps Toward Your Unique Purpose, or apply for a one-on-one Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session and discover your next best step on your journey. All available exclusively on our website. That's themiracleu.com. We look forward to sharing more experiences of passion, purpose, and life by design next time, right here on The Miracle You.